Hey everybody, welcome back to the Danger Planet. Today we're doing the Transmortis tier list keyword. Stay tuned. Alright, and before we kick things off, we're going to jump over to Mr. Dice with the lore breakdown on Professor Von Schtook. When you get a chance, definitely make sure to check out his Discord and check out his YouTube channel, which we will link below. Thank you so much, Dice. Take it away.
Professor Albus Von Schtook was a dedicated academic on Earth who studied the stars. He came to Malifaux along with several of his colleagues in order to expand their fields of study, but while the rest of the scientists were having great success, Von Schtook was only frustrated. The skies of Malifaux didn't seem to follow any of the known laws of science, with the stars and constellations seeming to move in ways that didn't make any sense. This caused Von Schtook to get frustrated, and eventually he decided he couldn't stand the sight of the sky anymore, so he fled underground. Taking up residence in an underground cistern, Von Schtook soon began dabbling in necromancy. After several months, he invited several of his colleagues to a party, and the group of scientists was never seen again. Soon after, he began transmitting his lessons over the Ethervox, teaching any prospective students how to merge undead flesh and machinery. He now runs the University of Transmortis, a school full of undead abominations, who he uses to perform his experiments, and then teaches them to practice his gruesome craft. After making contact with Lovelace, Von Schtook began questioning his reclusive ways, and decided that it was time to reach out and make contact with the other Resurrectionists. He soon came up from underground, and looked up at the sky for the first time in years. What he saw was the Burning Man tearing the sky apart and filling it with burning portals. This fascinated Von Schtook, and he once again began obsessing over the night sky, and using his students to spread his findings around Malifaux City.
Alright, so today we have Haku, Pope, and Doug. Say hello, everybody.
All at the same time? Okay.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Cool.
I know, he's so good. But we can't tell the internet about Greg, and I'm definitely going to cut this part out. Also, I'm famous for any time I say I'm definitely going to cut this part out, I don't. So that should be fun. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Mr. Von Schtook. He's a Resur Master that I've been playing a fair bit of. You know, there's all kinds of fun bits and bobs that we'll get into, but I figure we'd probably do it now. I'm so Schtook right now.
I'm so Schtook, bro.
Yeah, so Professor Von Schtook is a really interesting Resur Master. So he has a lot of flexibility and a pretty large keyword that you can take. But in general, the two things that I think that are the most important about his crew and sort of understanding how it works is that technically he's a summoning master, so he can get more dudes on the board. Although that's far from probably a primary thing that he does. But he basically can do sort of whatever you want with a big emphasis on card draw. So his whole crew has the ability Studied Opponent, which is once per activation, after you resolve an opposed duel with an enemy model, you may draw a card if there were any suits that matched in the final duel total between the two. So what you find yourself doing a lot is having either attacks that have built-in suits that don't do anything with any triggers, or like cheating down low cards to basically filter them out to draw cards. Mr. Schtook, at least Von Schtook 1, has you know, all kinds of different things that you can do with that. But basically, he just has two really good henchman beaters. Well, at least one really good henchman beater that you want to yeet up the field as fast as you can and do things in murder. Aside from that, his whole crew is very survivable. A lot of them have armor, if not all of them. There's a good amount of healing, there's a good amount of condition removal, and he's just generally a very well-rounded crew. Haku, you wanna talk about Von Schtook 2, the Stargazer?
Yeah, Von Schtook 1 was primarily does damage. There's a lot more about getting models up, attacking models with your, nice little decay-like action. And
yeah.
Von Schtook 2, he kind of passed that up for having a really broken ability called Studying of Anatomy, which allows you to do some pretty crazy things. Since almost all your models are undead, it's kind of like a little obey. Really helps move models out at the beginning. And they'll probably have constructs around there, so a lot of the time it's like a focus place or a place walk. You can get some really crazy distance on your models starting at the beginning of the game, and also any conditions. And so there's just so much support you are able to do with Study of Anatomy. It's kind of ridiculous. And the fact that you can also drop a scheme marker aggressively, which allows you to change the typing of models that are within 3 of a scheme marker, you can basically make sure that your opponent's models also have the typing you want for when you study of anatomy them. Normally that'll probably be living or undead, just to do 3 damage or move them. Thankfully, most models in the game are already one or the other, so a lot of the times you get both of those effects. And it's kind of nutty. You're just able to greatly move models around, which is pretty important in this GG, and probably will be important in every GG for at least one strategy. And worst comes to worst, you just start punching people with your attack that has built-in stun them. And if they're already stunned, +2 damage for a nice min-3 beater at range 2 that summons violent zombies. So he's a 10 out of 10 master, a lot more technical than a lot more plan-oriented than the first one, who pretty much is just beat face most of the time, but really strong once you figure him out.
Yeah, and I think out of all of the possible crews that you could play, there are a lot of crews that have access to a super wide toolkit. I mean, realistically, all of Resers has access to a pretty big toolkit where you can do things that you want. But particularly within keyword, I think Von Schtook has probably one of the widest and most varied counter play strategies to everything with the different students that we'll cover in a bit. But I really like Von Schtook. He's been super fun to go, and if we have some time, maybe I'll put some of my Von Schtook models up on the screen. I definitely stole this idea from one of our local guys who is painting his Von Schtook and research assistant as Rick and Morty, and I have done the same, and it's such a cool idea. The keyword fits it super well. But I guess without further ado, we'll do some more recappy stuff later. But let's talk about the model that you're going to take in every single Von Schtook list, the research assistant. He's going to go in auto-include for 1 and 2 because you get him for free. He's manipulative, he's insignificant, and he has a super important buff, I think, in both versions of the crew called Move Along, where friendly models that start their activation within Aura 3 of him gain +1 move until the end of their activation. He has a studied opponent ability just like everybody else in the crew, and then he has a bonus action that lets him throw injured on something to heal it 1 with a surge trigger, and Alchemical Vial, which is like an okay shockwave attack. It puts out some damage, maybe some poison, and sometimes he can drop scheme markers in it, which is not specifically relevant in 1, but is very relevant in 2. Haku, any comments about Mr. Assistant?
Move Along is an amazing ability, and just the fact that any tome gets you a card on Vile Reclamation is kind of nuts. And sometimes, if you use it against opponents, you can get 2 cards. Alchemical Vial, obviously really good to just make people annoyed. It's a really annoying totem that's insignificant, so your opponents don't really want to kill it, but they kind of just have to. It just generates too much value. It's not hard for them to do it, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, he has 4 health and manipulative, end of list for defensive tech, but no, I mean, I think he's a very strong totem for sure. Move Along is a hell of a drug. Pope, you got any fun thoughts on research?
He's got one of the best shockwaves in the game for just a model that comes along for free, and that always annoys the crap out of me. So he's good. Also, just like, does everything a totem needs to do.
Yeah, I forgot to mention for 2, it is pretty important. You can drop the scheme marker with 6 of tomes or better on that vial.
Yeah, not a bomb lets you, after resolving, drop a shockwave marker, choosing one of the drops. Choose one of the drop shockwave markers and drop a scheme marker into base contact with it before you remove it. So it's not even replacing it. You get a little bit more than 8 inches plus a 30 mil if you really need it. So that's actually a pretty wide place that you can drop one, which I think also, in addition to be very relevant for 2, is probably more relevant once we have a GG that actually cares about scheme markers in some capacity. Doug, you got any thoughts on Mr. Assistant?
I think the biggest thing is his aura, just making sure that you take advantage of the aura for probably at least turn 1 and whatever you can get value out of on turn 2 until he dies, basically. But you guys already called that one out, but I think that's his biggest thing.
Yeah.
And just throwing vials, like help the unpack and then just like yeet vials at people, basically.
So moving right along, we have the first henchman in the crew of 2 henchmen, Miss Anna Lovelace, who is wildly strong. So for a 10 cost henchman, you get studied opponent, armor 1, which is fine. 6 willpower, 6 defense is really good. but she has two really interesting aura abilities. Hostile work environment, which is a thing that I have forgotten numerous times when trying to play against this model. Enemy models within aura 6 cannot be targeted by the actions of other enemy models. So it shuts off self-buffing, self-targeting of any kind. It's like really, really strong, and it's very, very easy to forget until she gets yeeted into your face and you have nothing that you can do about it. And then she has the ability that people take her out of keyword for, which is called Gravity Well. Enemy models may not be placed within aura 6 of Anna Lovelace unless they are placed by an effect generated by a friendly model. Which means flight doesn't work. It means teleporting of any kind just completely doesn't work. There's dozens of abilities that let you place models on the other side of things and pick them up, and it just, there are so many things. You can't summon near her. There's so many things that just completely are unbelievably shut down by this ability, and she is in keyword, and I think you're taking her in every game ever in one. I can't imagine that that's not the case. Pretty much auto hire into. I don't know, Haku. You think I'm crazy?
No, I think you're exactly right. Those two abilities really do it. Study opponent's really good. Spirit Barrage is amazing. It ignores friendly fire.
Not even taking into account the back of her card, right? She has Spirit Barrage. She has Dissectors. Remote Detonator if you need it, but that's probably less so. But she can pack a punch. Her melee attack has Glimpse the Void on it, which could just mess with people's plans and put models out of play temporarily. But 2/3/4 that ignores friendly fire on range 12 that can sometimes summon some mindless zombies is not bad.
Yeah, I just like I really do enjoy her and Schtook too, honestly, a lot, just because I like dropping the scheme marker, killing totems or other models that people forget now just turn into mindless zombies, because I'm so used to that trigger never going off, but now that it's pretty easy, you can guarantee they're living, and then just murk them.
Yeah, Zombify, it does have the restriction of living only, but it doesn't matter when you're playing in Von Schtook 2, because you can make things living, which is great. Landon, you got any fun Anna Lovelace anecdotes?
Yeah, she's like great tech to take even outside of this. I don't know if you take her every time in Von Schtook, at least in Von Schtook 1, right? Like, she is pretty pricey. And
she's one of the... Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll concede for sure that she's like at the bottom of auto-include, but I think that she has such a wide and varied matchup thing where she's so unbelievably powerful. I don't know, maybe I can put her at the top of sub matchups for her.
I'll make the argument that the reason I like her in 1 a lot is I still am a little hesitant to put the upgrade on Valley, because I just love throwing Valley forward. So she's always been one of the great holders of the turn 1 upgrade for that Von Schtook hands out to get your sub in.
I always put it on Valley because I don't give a butt.
You either win or you lose.
Yeah.
I don't give a tushy.
When you play the game,
definitely great for anything where you have to stand still or people have to get somewhere and you just don't need to be anywhere in a hurry, because she's really tanky.
Yeah, and particularly I think in GG3 where you just want to be in a place and then stay there, and the denial that she gives you to your opponents is just unbelievably strong. So I'll keep her at the bottom of auto include for 1, but I like take her every time. I think that's probably where you want to be. Douglas, do you got any anecdotes?
I mean, she has Gravity Well. Gravity Well's insane. I think the only other model is Auric, right? That I can think of that has Gravity Well. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Mr. Schottenmeyer.
Unless we want to count the terrain marker from what's-her-face, the new
Tiri.
one. Oh, Tiri's terrain marker also has Gravity Well attached to it. The Architect. What a lady. Yeah, Gravity Well's insane. Like, that ability is... I hire Anna into my other crews because of Gravity Well when it's like a tech piece. That's usually how I end up using Anna. I don't play Transmortis as much. I'm more kind of like hire Valedictorian or Anna into my crews. But she's great. The only thing is she's just really expensive. And between bringing her and Valley Girl, a lot of points. So I feel like that would be, for me, why she's like the very top of sometimes. Because it's like sometimes, but really it's more often than not. But she's still just a lot of points. She's just an expensive model.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely is. I think for me, most Von Schtook lists basically start at 20-point deficit because of the Valedictorian, who we'll talk about in a second. But I think just as a selling point for the Von Schtook core box, as a completely unrelated or very related point, like, you know, if you are gonna play Resurrectionists in any capacity, you're probably gonna want 2 models for sure, regardless of what faction, and that's Manos and Anna Lovelace, and maybe even Madame Sybelle, if you're a Haku, that are just like really good solid out of keyword hires that you're gonna want to play in a lot of different lists. And Anna Lovelace is one of them. The only place to get her is the Von Schtook core box, so you're gonna buy the Von Schtook core box. You might as well just learn how to play the keyword because it's really strong.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Right. And without further ado, Ms. Valedictorian. There's a reason that she's the head of the class, because she is an amazingly strong beater. She is, I think, 100% even more so than Anna Lovelace in auto-include in every single Von Schtook list. I don't think that there's a reason that you would ever not actually take this model, whereas I think with Anna that there's definitely an argument not to, because she's so many points, but so is the Valedictorian. So 5 defense, 6 willpower, she's got armor 1, hard to wound, she has flight. Studied opponent, and more importantly, and the most important to not forget, especially when you're playing Sam that one time at ArmorCon, you cannot forget that she has flurry. She has the dissectors that Anna Lovelace has, which is just a 2-4-5 with in this case puncture and shove aside, but she's stat 7. She has lecture notes, which lets you stun people and on your heels, and then she has valedictory, which is a bonus action that I've never used. I'm probably wrong about that, but she's an amazingly strong beater. She murders everything. 100% take her. Haku, do you want to tell me why I'm wrong about valedictory, or just?
Yeah, because if stunning people isn't relevant, you pick up relevant suits for your crew that has TNs. You know, specifically, maybe your broken OP schemers that now need a suit to leap.
Ooh,
it's
okay.
pretty much like the only reason. I mean, you're just essentially trading a card up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not always, but most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the first bit is the part that you lost me on, which is I don't know when stunned isn't relevant, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you just don't think you can win the duel. I don't know. There's sometimes you just want to heal all models within range, realistically. Yeah, it's a little hard to pass up lecture notes, but you know, if you don't have cards in hand, or you just have like a 4 of, you know, rams, making a mass, get some leaps.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do disagree about Valedictorian. I think she's an auto-include in every Von Schtook list, period.
No, definitely. I mean, in 1, she's obviously very strong. The fact that she can't get fast anymore from Schtook is a little depressing, but that's about it. In 2, you make her living and you place her 3, you focus her, walk her, give her shieldage, she becomes a really obnoxious tanky model that you just move really close to them, like second to last activation, and then you just go murder things. Like either crew, you just can murder things.
Yeah, she murders real good. Mr. Pope?
Yeah, you make her fast, she goes in, things die. Yeah, I think even when stunned isn't relevant, you still get to fish for just drawing a card off of the bonus on it anyways, and like, I don't know, it still makes sense to use valedictory to me.
Well, if you haven't drawn off your bonus already, I don't know, it's a little awkward if you haven't already drawn.
I don't know. Anyways, this model's good.
Yeah. Douglas?
It's a good model. Kills stuff. Flies around. Lots of stat 7s everywhere.
Also, can we just be honest?
That,
there are
shove asides once per activation. I'll throw that call out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that forget that. Let's just be real here. Valedictorian is actually like a valedictory is actually a really pretty decent ability, because there are enough crews that care about corpse and scrap markers where AoE picking them up while trading a card for like a 13 is definitely worth it.
Okay,
there are multiple crews that drop a bunch of corpse and scrap markers.
To be clear,
I'm not going to take this blast on this ability.
If you're playing against Mei Feng, sure, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Run the like they see the valedictorian. Yeah, I mean, you take valedictorian out of keyword against Mei Feng for that purpose, right? I mean, and also because she's just good, but Yeah, there definitely are crews that AoE removing corpse and scrap markers is really strong, for sure. I was, to be fair, I was not calculating those into the possibilities. I think that's an ability on someone somewhere, but yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, it does let you remove all of the corpse and scrap markers you want. Neat. All right, well, that I think brings us to America's favorite enforcer.
Huh? This crew doesn't have an enforcer. What are you
Post
talking
Malone?
about?
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. This crew basically.
Wait, no, Post Malone is way better than this guy. I know what you're talking about.
I think Post Malone is a henchman. No, I didn't think he was an enforcer. Anywho, we have the backup assistant, and unfortunately there's a bit of a glitch with our tier making software. It does not let us automatically end tier something, and I really would like to go back in and just make a new tier for this model, because there's no asterisk. Like, don't buy this. You have one because you bought the Von Schtook 2 box, but oh my god.
I thought that was just extra bits they threw in, like in case you want a gremlin corpse.
I don't understand why you would pay. Why can't they just make him significant?
I hope this dude gets an Aurora soon, but
because you can mold into a significant model and surprise people.
No, stop.
For
4 points, you get a defense 4, willpower 4, 5 health enforcer. He is evasive. He has demise expendable, which I guess if you want to pay 4 soul stones for a card, that's fine. He has extra set of hands, which means if someone draws cards, he can take an irreducible damage to draw a different card. He's insignificant. His melee attack makes this target suffer 1 damage and can end a condition on them, but it's base to base. It's 0-inch range. He has I've Got Your Back, which is his only good ability, which just needs a suitless 5 to I've Got Your Back somebody. And I guess technically he has Mold of the Other, so he could become, I don't know, the normal research assistant, Mr. Assistant, if you will. But like,
when they kill off your first research assistant, he becomes
if extra set of hands was more than a 3-inch frickin' aura, I would say that would be the best ability on his card. But 3 inches is just so small for a model with these stats.
Yeah.
In a crew with tools, Mold of the Other is not the worst ability in the world.
Yes, it is.
Well, okay, this crew doesn't have tools. You have to hire that in from out of keywords. So
that's true.
We'll talk about that later.
Which we'll talk about later. So really, what Haku says is, if you can hire a nurse,
so if you want Mold of the Other, you could just pay an additional 11 points. You could pay 11 points to get a Mold of the Other bot in 2 models.
Yeah.
And one
of those only were just get removed off the board immediately.
Look, dude, this guy needs to not have Mold of the Other and have you may replace, like, when the research assistant dies. His demise aura is that you can replace with the backup assistant, except he has to have all of the abilities on the research assistant card.
Just make him significant. Literally, just make him significant and make his aura from a 3 to a 6.
Yeah, you can't even help the scheme work dropping in Schtook 2. It's kind of hilarious.
Just make him significant and make his aura 3 inches bigger. Just give him 3 inches on the top there.
Literally doesn't work with the guy whose box he came out in.
Yeah, all right, whatever. Okay, on to the next thing.
We have the first of this, the 4 student model, or 5 student models, I guess technically, if you want to count the punks. But so we have the undergrads. So the undergrads are 6 soul stones for a 5/5. They have hard to wound, studied opponent, made to kill. So once per activation after this model is placed, it can do a melee for free, and then it has patronize. So when an enemy starts its activation within 3, you can choose a suit. The enemy model adds the suit to all of its tools for the phase, which is basically just lets you turn on studied opponent. That's the premise of it. He has lead the way, which is an ability you might be familiar with, which lets you push a model that's within 2 inches of him, 4 inches in any direction, and then you push the undergrad towards that model. When resolving, instead of pushing him, if you get a mask, you can place him into base contact, which is how you can trigger his made to kill ability. So you can sort of get your guys up the field a little bit, place, and then get a quick punch out of the way. Although you do have to spend a suit for that. their melee attack's okay. Study's pretty good. It's one of the abilities of the crew where you target a scrap or corpse marker, drop a scheme marker into base contact, and then remove it, which is like situationally okay as Surge, which isn't too bad. But in general, this crew is such an expensive crew right off the bat because you have Valedictorian and Anna. And I have never once hired an undergraduate in anything other than a testing opportunity. I probably would never hire this model. I don't know. Am I crazy, Haku?
No,
Like,
he's made to
I
be
don't think
summoned. They're just like Davis. They're made to be summoned.
Yeah.
You
you
get the
know
free
what?
attack when they get summoned. It's cool.
And you get or just like Davis or the Neverborn one, the Nightmare Puppets, or Alps, but yeah. So we didn't really talk too much about Von Schtook's summoning ability, but basically he attaches an upgrade to his models, which gives them a little bit of a buff, and then when they kill something, you can discard the upgrade to summon a model that costs equal or less than the model killed. So as one of the cheaper models that you can summon for Transmortis minions, the Undergraduate is probably a thing that you'll see pretty frequently getting summoned, but you just don't have the points to hire these guys. Yeah.
If you're doing a cheeky public demo thing, maybe you take some.
Ooh, do we have a submission, Pope, for
No,
the
'cause
pub
you have
dem
Enslaved
cup?
Spirits.
Oh, well, but
I think we all know that the greatest pub demo is what Pope was talking about
steam
before,
arachnids.
where you just take.
Yeah, but you know,
Yeah.
3 undergraduates or a whole box of undergraduates for the pub dem cup.
Well, 6 steam arachnids
Dressed
in a
up
trench
as an
coat.
undergrad 3 times. That's
Yeah.
18 steam arachnids.
You have a 3 AP model
Agreed.
in Enslaved Spirits. Like, the only way you ever thought about hiring this model was because Lead the Way, some people like. I hate because it's an attack action, and I always get screwed by concealing on it, because I just forget about it. Or all these stupid concealing orders that exist nowadays that just give models concealing. And, unless Enslaved Spirits get wildly changed,
Or you
can have
literally
2 of
double
them
their
per
points
model.
cost. Yeah, right.
So, no, he's kind of meme-worthy in Schtook too, just because he is a construct, so you do get to place him when you take your action against him. But you have way better models to move with that ability. You have enemy models to move with that ability and deal 3 to them. So no, you're just no.
Yeah, and like realistically, if you hit I do think you're really only going to summon these guys if you get 6. Like in most cases, even when you're at 6, you might just want to summon a necropunk anyway. I think they're more versatile, but they're cool models. Build and paint them, I guess. Pope, you got any fun
I mean,
tales?
you can run them for public demo, I guess. I don't know.
All right,
You
yeah,
have
the Pope-
necropunks and slaves. Ah.
Nah. Douglas, do you have any final thoughts on Mr. Undergraduate? Under T grad?
I think if he studies really hard and applies himself, one day he might
No,
become a
actually, he
postgraduate.
doesn't have Mold of the Other. That's the backup assistant.
Oh, well then the future looks grim
not
for this
great.
guy.
So Student of Steel, that's a thing. So we have our first proper student model with the Transmortis keyword. They are a 7-cost minion. Their defense 4, which is not great, willpower 6, but they are armor 1, hard to wound. They've studied opponent, and then they have sabotage. So if they kill a construct, you can drop a scheme marker in base contact with yourself, which is not super relevant in sometimes it's super relevant, but it does become a little bit more viable in Von Schtook 2. They have the dissectors that we've seen so far on Valedictorian and Lovelace, with puncture and armor piercing, which is pretty good, and their armor piercing is built in, which is amazing. Analyze weakness is another thing that we're going to see. I think a couple dudes in this crew have analyze weakness, right? Or maybe I'm on crack. No, that's just them. Yeah. So it's fine. We'll cut this.
Both of those things are true.
So analyze weakness lets you 10-inch 5 stat 5 willpower duel ignore a target's armor and shielded until the end phase, which is pretty strong. They have the bonus action lecture notes. What? That's pretty strong.
No, analyze weakness is the biggest bait. One of the biggest bait abilities in the game.
It's very strong. You can do good things with analyze weakness. I've analyzed several weaknesses, I'll have you know. And then lastly, they have field repairs. So Student of Steel, I've occasionally hired one of. I think that there definitely is a case to hire them sometimes, but I really don't think you should be hiring them in Von Schtook 1. Really, maybe you hire them as a one, with the exception of if you're playing against all construct lists or all like heavily armored lists. I really don't think, which I guess is some matchups, but I don't think you're really hiring these guys. Haku, am I wrong?
I don't think you're ever hiring these guys. I almost never even summon them. I really do think that Analyze Weakness is a bait. Armor Piercing, obviously, though, is really nice. So if Armor Piercing comes up, yeah, sure. Like, built-in... that's the funniest part to me. You have Analyze Weakness, but you have built-in Armor Piercing. If you want to just hit the guy with Armor Shielded, just hit the guy. Yeah. I guess the shielded part's where it comes in. Maybe with all, like, the Bygone stuff, you don't reduce their shielded... you want to reduce their shielded though, so don't get built-in suits. I don't know. I Analyze Weakness has always been like a bait ability.
Yeah.
Lecture Notes though is just cracked. Lecture Notes will never not be cracked, but everyone has it. So pay the extra soul stone.
It wasn't though. Field repairs.
Yeah. I mean, field repairs when you need to. Field repairs exist. So yeah. It's a really high TN though.
Yeah, it is. Weirdly, you need a 7 or higher to heal for 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Like their lecture notes though has mental trauma, which is nice. So they pitch a card or take 3 damage.
Doesn't everyone's?
Oh
right. Sorry, Viscera has a blank stare. My bad.
The Sinew do.
Yeah, just the 2 same cost ones do. My bad.
Yeah. Pope, you got any fun Student of Steel SOS? They need some help.
It's a saucy model, but I'm not certain that I've ever seen it used to good effect. I don't know. It feels like on paper this model should be good though, just looking at it. But I think you just usually have better choices available.
Yeah, I think maybe if we had like a glow up where they cost 1 less point or something. Douglas, do you have
Move
any
5 honestly might be it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, move 4 is really not excellent.
Yeah, move 4 doesn't ignore terrain. Like the reason it's fine as a summon is because it's then up the board if you're hiring this guy. Ugh.
Yeah, I think he's a good summon. I think he's a good summon with a really good attack, but I don't think you're hiring this guy from the jump. I think this guy's like a solid summon target.
I think that the trick for me with summoning 7 cost models with Von Schtook is because you're killing stuff. Like you want to kill higher value targets with Valedictorian for sure, or Anno, whoever you put it on. And so when you're killing something that costs 7, sure, absolutely summon a Student of Steel all day. But like you're not gonna summon one if you kill something that costs 8. You're just gonna summon a Student of Viscera unless you have 2 in play already. But we'll talk about them in a second. First, we have the Student of Sinew. The Student of Sinew is another 7 cost model. He again has defense 4, willpower 6, and movement 4, which is awful. Armor 1, hard to wound, fine. Studied opponent, fine. And he has necromantic research, so similar to the other guys who killed constructs. If this model kills an undead model, it may draw a card, which arguably I think is better, especially because you're gonna be able to, especially in Von Schtook 2, make them. We have the dissectors yet again, but this time we have puncture and flay. Flay is a very, very strong trigger. It lets you, when resolving, cheat even if they were negative damage flips. And on a 2/4/5 damage track, that's quite good. He also has Command Corpse, which is pretty good. So on a 6 of crows or higher, you get to make a non-leader undead take a bonus action, a non-bonus action, I mean. We got Lecture Notes that causes stun with mental trauma. And then his other weird bonus action is keeping the peace until the end phase. When enemy models in range declare a charge, they have to TN 13 willpower or it fails, which is probably not relevant. Yeah. Though
it's the sudden strike trigger that's relevant, but yeah.
Sure, sudden strike lets you make it do a melee action, but it's only on a ram and it's not built in. But you only need a 4, so that's very, very doable with this crew, because you're drawing a lot of cards, ideally. I think that Student of Sinew probably is a market improvement from Student of Steel, but I still don't really think that you're ever going to hire this dude, especially considering movement 4 is such a rough thing to deal with on a crew, you know? I don't know. Am I wrong, Haku? I think that we're maybe even the top of never hire, but I just don't think we're...
Yeah, sure, top and never higher. I mean, like every summoner, they make minions that aren't meant to be hired. Move 4, you want to get this guy up. If you kill a 7 cost, he's normally the one you're getting unless you need the ignore armor. Command Corpse is like kind of a meme. If Sloth didn't exist, you might legitimately hire this guy for Command Corpse, but 6 of crows is just too questionable to try to get.
Yeah, and
So-
I mean, Sloth costs the same points. There's no world, right?
Well, yeah. It's just get Sloth, and then any 6 gives you fast, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah. Pope?
Blade's a really good trigger, but like, when are you gonna get to use it if you're not just using this guy as a summon? I don't know.
Yeah. Douglas? Mr. Doug? Dougie Doug?
I think he's a good summon, basically. I think it's kind of. I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
Said.
Well, we've had a couple good summons, and by that I mean like one, but a couple passable ones and a really good one. But let me talk to you about our Lord and Savior, the Student of Viscera. So this guy is an 8-cost minion, defense 5, willpower 5, and movement 5. But not just that, he has rush, so he's actually movement 7 sometimes. He's unimpeded, which is super strong. He has studied opponent, because of course he does. He has constriction, which is a thing that I've definitely actually remembered he has. And armor 1 and hard to wound. Dissectors 2, 4, 5. He has puncture. He has severe injury, which is baked in, which is very, very strong. But he also has onslaught, which lets you, for a mask, take this action again, targeting the same model. We have lecture notes. We have ambush, which is another movement ability if you're not going to be lecturing notes. So pitch a card unless you're in concealing terrain and move up to 3. That's unimpeded. Gotta love it when ambush models are unimpeded and not unimpeded. Like Neverborn, it's fine. I'm not mad. And then we have emergency surgery, which is normally so it's other living model only, so he can't ever target himself, and normally he can't target the Valedictorian except when he can in Von Schtook 2. He heals 1, 2, 3, and then models with impulse of this model have to TN14 willpower to be pushed 4 inches away. Which you know, if you want a bloody display trigger, that's fine, but sometimes you don't. Dude, Student of Viscera is wild. They're so unbelievably good. Haku, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I normally hire 2 of these now in Von Schtook 1, since they made the change on who gets fast. You can just double fast the Student of Visceras as your go-in model. Really nice with, unimpeded terrain as well, and they almost go... I don't want to say they go further than the Valedictorians, but they do, because they get the charge range and they also have ambush. And so... if the terrain is like more open, they legitimately go further and they do very similar damage. You can't stone for puncture is like their only downside.
Yeah.
But other than that, just being 1 suit less and 2 soulstones cheaper, they're kind of the reason why Valedictorian doesn't necessarily have much of a play in Von Schtook 1. And I mean, obviously still cracked, but for your all-in, you can kind of just go all-in with the Student of Visceras, and then even if they kill one, you can try to summon the second one with your backup. If your Valley goes in and then finishes off whatever they sacrifice their lives to try to kill.
So what do you think about placement? Do you think higher than Valedictorian, do you think? No?
Probably not. I don't know. I've legitimately debated dropping Valedictorian in Schtook 1 every now and then. I always change my mind, but every other time it comes up just because I want to go further, faster, harder.
Yeah.
And I don't really even care to use the stones on puncture anymore, and it's more like playing around, but I still want the Valedictorian there as like the second go-in or pick off models on the side. He's just no longer the primary go-in for me as much.
Yeah, I mean, Student of Viscera is very strong. Rushes a lot sometimes too, and the speed is definitely there. Plus, it doesn't really only save you to the 2 soul stones. I mean, it does, but it also saves you the use of soul stones, right? If you think about it that way. So
yeah, because I'm like more willing to have these die, especially because it's like all in. Whereas Valley, I can actually use to fly around like terrain and actually snipe things. In Von Schtook 2, are they still on auto include? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think
similar reason.
Anna moves up the chart a little bit more for me, but I think they're still very good, and also because you can't summon them, right? So that's sort of a big deal.
Yeah, so they're actually like a decent amount frailer, but because you can be giving them shielded while focusing them and moving them around, they also become somewhat scarier at the same time. Schtook's ability to move models is just kind of crazy. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Pope, you got any wisdom to share?
I've definitely seen lists that run Viscera and not Valedictorian. It's weird, but you know you can do it. These things aren't much faster, and when you need to spread out as opposed to just trying to box someone in, it works out. Onslaught's just a really good ability to have on a crew with so much card draw. Built-in severe injury is dumb. I don't know. I hate these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing over Valley, right? Is if you're not investing in like puncturing a guy, you're actually totally willing to just hit the same guy multiple times to get him down with severe injury, and then it's basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've heard it here first, folks, right? Pope hates them, play 2 of in every list, right? Doug?
I agree. Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
man.
much. I think these guys are good. They're mobile. They have armor. They're hard to wound. They have a good attack. They have a fast action. Gives out stunned. Turns out lecture notes is good. Who knew? Yeah, I like these guys. I think they're reasonable.
Always take your notes when you go to lectures. I think that's really important. But
I think you might find the results are stunning.
Good punning, if you will. So I think we have one more model in the keyword, and definitely I think that's it for keyword stuff. But we have the model that he shares with Leviticus. We have the necropunks. I think we've recently talked a lot about them. You may have seen our Leviticus tier list, but necropunks are good. You know, they're defense 4 and willpower 4 with armor 1, hard to wound. So they're kind of squishy, but they're also sort of like deceptively tanky. Your opponent can definitely kill them if they want, but they have entropy, which is nice. So you ping a damage when you start. They've studied opponent. Claws is their bad melee attack that has onslaught. But they've leaped, right? They have 6. They need a 4 or better of masks to trigger their leap. And in Leviticus, I think that it's probably significantly less because he has such less card draw. But in Von Schtook, I have very rarely found myself not able to leap with at least one of these guys around. And I think that, there definitely is a case to take them in some cases, if not most. Haku?
I will put them in some matchups because the nerf to their leap really did hurt them, but mostly just because GG3, and I know we might be leaving this soon, but GG3 doesn't really need you to spread out as much as past GGs did, where they like really stood out. Like we don't have symbols anymore, where they're obviously just kind of broken as hell. And you honestly need like a little tankier models that go up to the midline, and for that reason, I'm just not the biggest fan. I mean, they still do like covert and a couple other things decently well, and they're always going to just be really hard to remove from the board. So they're never bad models to take. It's just like debating whether or not to take a more elite crew, or honestly, nowadays, just take Enslaved Spirits to help your unpack.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally fair. Von Schtook is definitely a master that benefits from some of the versatiles quite a bit. But I mean, I do think they're good, and like. Yeah, you can kill them, but I played a game against Rich a couple weeks ago where I was playing against the Clampets, and the Clampets wasted a full activation not killing one of my necropunks. He was not drawing well, but it was very funny.
Was it the boat or the Silurid?
The Silurid one, the normal.
Okay, that makes more sense.
The normal Clampies. No, the boats would have run him over. Pope, what do you got? Necropunks. Are they too punk for your necro, or too necro for your punk?
I mean, I hate punks, but these punks, they're okay. You know, they, as Haku said, a lot of their use case currently is just kind of off meta right now.
Yeah.
I used to like see these all the time with the Grey Spirit's Touch kind of slapped on them, just because they're really annoying models to try and one shot with the hard to wound, and just the table space they occupy. I still think you can get good use of them, like playing flanks on guard or like go for it, as Haku said, but. You're not going to see them, I think, in the other half. I mean, you can probably still play them in carve, but they're not my ideal carve models. I don't know. They're okay.
No, you have enslaves. Like I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
They're okay.
Yeah, I think they're good. Doug, what do you think? Punks?
These guys are dope. I really like these guys. I think a really good point that you made, Brandon, Mr. Lane, is that they are markedly a bit better in this crew than I think in Amalgam. Just because you have a higher trajectory of the ability to get to those suited lower cards specifically in this case of 4 or better of masks. But I do think they need the right scheme pool or the right strat and scheme pool to shine in. And I'll concede that, yeah, GG3 was a lot more about standing in a place at a specific time and just staying alive. And these guys really shine when they're allowed to jump all over the map, use their leap abilities, and then like spread out for either primaries or secondaries. But I mean, that's a thing that's always been important in Malifaux. And quite frankly, I see some level of that coming back.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we didn't see it, them sort of bounce back. And if we have some strats or schemes that are a little bit more mobile based, I think we'll see necropunks make a dramatic resurgence. They're really good. And I think the thing that we forgot to talk about as a group entirely, actually specifically about necropunks, is that I mentioned earlier in my Von Schtook Rick and Morty theme. I have painted my necropunks, which you will see on the screen right now as Mr. Meeseeks. There, Mr. Meeseeks. Look at them. Huge fan. Thank you so much. Humble brag. Humble / not humble.
And you.
So yeah, let's talk about some out of keyword guys, right? Because we have Resurrectionists. Resurrectionists have a fancy toolkit worth of stuff, and I think we're going to lead it off with a henchman you might know as Manos. Manos the Risen is quite a guy. He costs 10 points in any of the Von Schtook lists because he's 9+1. He's Ancestor and Retainer, but he has Regen. He has Lantern of Souls, which is a ignore demise ability, which is really strong. He has Assassin, which gives him fast when he kills enemy models that haven't activated, which is very strong. He has Extended Reach, which means he can't be the target of charge actions, or they can't, well, theoretically he can't be, but enemy models aren't allowed to do the melee attack off charge if they are within 2 inches of him, which is absurdly strong. He has Siphon Power, which lets him suffer damage to add suits to duels, which is absurdly strong. And he has Spirit Barrage, which is quite good. It's 2/3/4. We saw it on Anna Lovelace earlier. But more importantly, it has an AoE resistless stagger, which is absurdly strong. And he also has Leap, which is very strong. Like, this guy is a whole Swiss Army knife of murder and killing and denial in a box. I know the very first time I ever saw Manos, I think actually played and utilized, Doug played him against me, and I almost conceded the game at the bottom of 1 when he activated Manos' first action, AoE Spirit Barraged, and turned off, I think it was at Euripides I was playing, and you just literally staggered my entire crew, and I was like, well, I have lost the game.
Yeah, on first activation, I think it was like move, leap. It was like move, leap, Spirit Barrage, something that was like willpower 4 or something, and then it AoE'd and hit your entire crew, and then you were like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, and then you're like, well, it's like that. We can play it. The meme from The Simpsons where Grandpa Simpson walks into the bar, sees Bart is the maitre d', puts his hat immediately back on and leaves in a little loop.
That was basically, it was even like, it was more like a brothel almost, wasn't it?
I think it was like a burlesque bar.
Yeah, burlesque bar. There you go.
Yeah, it was that meme. Yeah, that meme is what had happened. And then since then, Mr. Lane has developed a hearty respect for the Risen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This is probably a much better of a Haku question as to where I would put him. I think high some matchups in both, because I think there are circumstances where denying their demise abilities, pulsing out, stunned, and extended reach and assassin are just absurdly strong.
It's the question for me is it like above necropunks or not, and I'm just gonna take like the halfway, and in Von Schtook 2 I say it would be above, and in 1 it might be below. Just because Von Schtook 2 has like more ways of getting aggressive scheme markers out already, and so therefore you don't really need like more people doing it. You can rather have like one healthy person who also does the more important things that you're generally hiring them for out of keyword, which is denying demise or being a tanky solo laner. Because you can really, like, unlike necropunks, you send them off by yourself, they eventually die. This guy, you send him off by yourself, and he'll just like never die. With in between regen 2 and can't be charged and his siphon life, and yeah,
dude, there are so many things on this model are ridiculous.
Yeah, well, also it's a henchman, so he's got that going for him. So
and he's a henchman, so he can stone.
He's really solid in just like being able to completely dominate a lane. So if
He has
you're
regeneration
playing
too,
like corners or
just
like
like
wedge or something like
on
that,
him.
and you know you're not going in, it sometimes actually just replaces Valley as a more versatile model versus like a kill model, depending on what you need in that crew at the time.
Yeah.
Again, if we go back to strats like symbols where you just send a model in and you don't really care when it dies because it's gonna get 2, possibly 3 symbols, then you go back to necropunks. But losing that suit really hurt. Consistency of Manos is just something that is hard to pass up. And as you said, there's a lot of players that don't play around Divine Strike. They just don't know about it, don't remember it. You're in a tournament, and you're like, oh, you just clumped your whole crew. Your whole turn is now basically gone.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we're assuming we're at top tier tournament play where everybody actually finishes games of Malifaux, which, like, let's be honest, that's probably less than half of games of Malifaux that exist. Like, just straight up losing an entire turn, specifically a turn that's as crucial as your unpack in tournament play, you can win games with one ability resolved if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing, which you should never do in casual play. You're a complete asshole if you're doing this to your friends in a system, in a circumstance that's not like educating them for tournament play and like fully aware that you're going to be like, okay, good, I've learned this lesson, let's re-rack now. But oh man, like, this is a spicy trick to have in your pocket, and it's definitely a gotcha moment, but like, if your opponent has Manos in their list, you have to prepare for the eventuality that you might get everyone within a bubble of your lowest willpower model staggered, and that's real tough for some crews to deal with. Some crews don't give a shit, but Pope, what you got? What are your thoughts? Manos, he's a guy?
Man, that was a lot of word on Manos.
Man.
Yeah, it makes it hard to have another thing to say. Yeah, Assassin is good. He's a real beast against people who have those 2 wound summons or like tiny things in general, because he's more like, you already say he's like a 3 AP or a 4 AP type thing, but when he gets to be like a 5 AP type thing, he's really efficient and cool. Do watch out though, he will just die if people just shoot him. He is defense 5 with extended reach, doesn't help you against bullets, man, my dude. That's my thoughts.
That's true. That's true. Also, that being said, what are bullets? I grew up on Neverborn.
Yeah, they don't have that in the Neverborn, except.
You mean you never played Trapper Colody? I mean,
what about
that was some bullets.
What about the coolest looking Neverborn model who has a sniper, whose name I definitely remember?
Angel Eyes? Yeah.
Yeah, what about Angel Eyes? Angel Eyes is the best model ever.
Can I just say special shout out to Steve, who I'm theoretically playing in a game of Malifaux tomorrow, assuming that my MRI goes well. He just is a diehard fan of Angel Eyes. He plays Angel Eyes in every list, and it's wild stuff. Go Steve, you keep on keeping on, you Angel Eyes guy.
You crazy diamond. All right, Madam Sybelle.
She's a lady, all right. So Haku, do you just want to take this one, because this is like your pet project / thing, and I
also mine. Right?
Doug,
she's
why
a
don't
Red
you
Chapel.
lead the way on Madam Sybelle?
All right, I'll say my piece, and then Haku can tell me why I'm stupid.
If you're just talking good graces, I'll never say you're stupid about Sybelle, so go for it.
Okay, sweet. So Madam Sybelle, I've played a lot of natively out of Red Chapel, but I think Haku used to play her a lot as a tuck-in for Curai 2 when Malifaux Burns had just dropped. She was insane then also, because she could put people on a neg flip for willpower duels from Scarlet Temptation and cause people effectively to auto-fail out of the summon trap. But she's also just like a really good versatile model. She has a really good kit. She has a quad trigger stat 6 2-inch attack that is very, very, very good. She has Terrifying 11. She has Hard to Wound. Scarlet Temptation is a 1-inch aura of negative willpower duels generated by other friendly models, of which obviously there's a bunch of really high value ones in this crew. So it's great to have that as a passive, obviously. And then Bump in the Night says, after an enemy model ends a move engaged by a friendly Red Chapel within 6, If it is not the enemy model's activation, gains 1 distracted, not as strong. We're looking more at Scarlet Temptation and some of the other things that she can do. She's got I've Got Your Back, which is a really powerful generic fast action. Probably more often, you're going to be proactively using Undivided Attention, which is a really powerful debuff aura on her for 6 inches. It basically says enemy models within range suffer -1 to their dual totals during their activation. And then it can pulse heal on a ram. Her Bleeder Lash, I talked a little bit about it. It's a pretty quality attack. It's not going to like focus down a model specifically, but you can do a bunch of damage with it on tomes with Sweeping Strike. You can do a decent amount of spread out damage with it, or you can use it to make an opponent discard a card, or you can just build in crit strikes on it because she is a henchman. So the track is not like the best, but it's also not the worst because it's a min-3, so it's 3/3/4. And then the caveat is if the target has half of its maximum health or below, then the action gets a plus to its duel. So she's good at beating up on other beaten up things, and she has a trigger on every single one of her Bleeder Lashes. And then Beckoning Call is really good for repositioning. I think that's the exact same ability as White Rabbit, just with different triggers. But it's really good. And in general, you can hand out Distracted on a Mask, and then on a Crow, choose another enemy model and target line of sight, chosen model gains Distracted +1. She's just really versatile kit, really good. Scarlet Temptation happens to be really good in this crew synergistically.
Yeah, no, you kind of, I mean, you read the whole card. It's all amazing stuff. And with the onset of having like a lot of point control schemes and strats, she's basically been my replacement to Valedictorian a little bit. In those scenarios where it's like wedge or even sometimes flank, depending on what boards look like or what the schemes and strat pool actually looks like. And, you know, if it's guard or even covert, where, you know, they got to approach the center line. One of Schtook's downsides, he doesn't have a lot of necessarily inherently tanky models. And this model can get very tanky. And with that being said, you just go in there, potential min-5 melee attack, who can have pluses to its duel, is just ridiculously cracked. And you probably don't play it as much in Schtook 2, mostly because I've learned that Schtook 1 just being a really good caster, which synergizes well in these scenarios where you're already close to your opponent, is just great. So when I'm hiring Sloth, I can drop Valley, take Madame Sybelle. I was going to say Emmeline, because that's the card I use. And they work really well together with that negative to willpower aura, as well as just being that tanky model that holds the mid that they don't really quite have, but all their models are kind of tanky-ish, so it's not that easy to say they're not. And yeah, the heals go far in that, and I've Got Your Back is always very strong after you charge in your student of Viscera to murder something, and you're like, hey, I don't want to be there anymore. Let's go be in the middle of the map instead.
Yeah. I think Madame Sybelle definitely has your back. But where are we putting him? Where are we putting her in 1?
Honestly, almost up for Schtook 1, almost above NecroPunks for me. For Schtook 2, below. The big thing she does in Schtook 2 is that she gets the focus as well as the herb move, as well as you'll generally give her shielded just to make her tankier. And then that allows you to drop the shockwaves on your opponents just easier, which is nice. They're really good shockwaves. They heal your allies. The downside is they will hurt. She will have to take the flip for the shockwave as well. Which,
yeah,
oh well.
I think that these are all excellent points. My favorite point is that the Emmeline Bellerose model exists, which you can't normally get. You can get during all of the holiday, Black Friday, Gen Con, birthday sales and stuff. And if you do, make sure to use our affiliate code. We did it. I was finishing up the Dashel edit recently, and it was very funny because I said that 7,000 times. So call back to Dashel. We did it. But yeah, definitely check out the Emmeline Bellerose card. If you're not going to play Seamus and buy his core set where Madame Sybelle comes from, you can get the promo model for like $20 on sale. So yeah, that's
promo model just confuses me because it doesn't look undead.
Well, because it's not. It's Emmeline. Not undead, Aline.
Yep.
All right. Admittedly, that one was a miss, but It's fine.
Crickets.
I have
We to
the
crickets on
cricket.
that
Okay,
audio
fine.
track.
I'll silence us here and put crickets in. I have the cricket sound effect that I used in a couple videos ago, just on retainer.
Good. It's important to have
Yeah,
ducks
and crickets are
retainer
everywhere.
here.
Sorry. Okay. Cool. So on to
The best boy.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, your friend and mine, Sloth. Sloth is the Sloth is the Resurrectionists Crossroad 7 model. For 7 points, you get 5 defense and 5 willpower, 4 move, which is not great, but manipulative, resonance, which is definitely relevant for sure. It's not, because there won't be any other friendly Crossroads 7 models. But he's hard to wound. He's consumed by Sloth, so enemies that would heal within 6 of him have one of his tokens on them. Don't. And when a model heals within 6 of him, it gains a sin token. The big deal is rigor mortis. Target gains slow. If it's a friendly undead model, it gains fast instead, which is very strong. And he has a 6, a 1-inch melee willpower stat 6 that does slow, with maim, and he's a henchman.
Well, you've left out the other most important part, which is a range 10 heal 3 no flip gain slow, which doesn't even matter in Schtook 2 because the ability you're moving to obey your guys and move them around and give them shielded or whatever ends conditions.
Yeah. The beat goes on. Yeah, dude, resting in the blues, 10-inch bonus action. It's his only bonus action, so you might as well do it. Target gains slow and heals 3. Not bad. No targeting restrictions other than other models. So Sloth is really, really strong for sure in any Neverborn. Sorry, I keep saying Neverborn. In any Resurrectionist crew, because he lets you give undead models fast. You know who's an undead model? Valedictorian. You know who's another undead model? Student of Viscera. And they're always undead,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my favorite thing about Sloth is since the change to Valley 1 or Schtook 1 to fast only minions, in order to get your Valley fast, or if you're hiring Sybelle, you have to hire Sloth. And when I started doing that, I kind of learned that I actually just don't mind taking Schtook's normal attack action anyways, instead of trying to fast all my models. And I would rather just hire 7 stones to go do that for me, while also healing them. So for me, he's an auto take in both of them. Probably at the bottom of both of them, because I am willing to switch them out, especially if you're like on wedge. You don't necessarily need the setup, but a lot of the time it's also just that heal 3. It comes in clutch on your armor models or your hard to wound models. It's just like, oh no, they gain slow, but they're not dead. So that's a plus.
Yeah. Pope, you got any Sloth tips?
And Sloth was one of the first models in this game to make me salty, so that's some train going back as far as just the bonus action heal 3 no TN. It's really good. I was just thinking about my models where I'm like, I gotta flip a 6, then I gotta cheat a severe, and this guy's just like, oh, no big deal, just do it. It's one of the big reasons I actually started playing Crossroads as just like a whole crew. I'm like, fuck it, I want to play that model. So he's good. He's obviously much better in Resus than he is in the Crossroads crew. But if you can, for whatever weird reason, get a token out there, his tactical's not bad either.
At some point, and definitely get down in the comments, folks. We're gonna have to do the Crossroads 7 tier list.
Oh, someone's gonna correct me, so I might as well correct myself. Schtook 1 ends the conditions, not 2. I don't know why I'm saying that. That's why I still like it in Schtook 1. You can always have conditions.
Doug, what's your Sloth take? You love this boy.
It's amazing. He's like the best. Sloth kicks absolute ass.
You heard it here first, folks.
I mean, Schtook 2 does also end conditions, yeah.
Schtook 2 has to make him a beast and condition.
Brought to you by the company who makes Nike, which I guess is Nike.
Oh, I guess the other thing is that nobody gave us as much time. His ability to stop healing is really awesome. It's sweet.
Well, so for it to happen, you have an enemy has to heal within 6 of him. and then you
Twice.
can stop it if they're within 6 of him.
Yeah, he'll stop you eventually. He's a little
If I had
slow.
a
He's
nickel
got
for
other
every
stuff he's
time you
doing.
tried to heal, you wouldn't have healed twice.
Yeah, I if I had a nickel for every time I have successfully
Just
denied
remember
a
it.
heal with Sloth, I would have no nickels.
I'm just saying, remember it happens. A lot of people forget about that ability. Just remember it. You can get value out of it.
I will
and
say
do
this,
things.
No
the
one's gonna
threat-
forget about that ability. It's not flurry.
Yeah, sure. You remember to assign the sin token to them the first time they do it.
Just remember, folks. Remember that consumed by sloth and drawing this out is a thing.
All right,
Remember
Doug,
your triggers. Remember
really-
your auras.
you're really drawing this one out, bud.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well,
It shuts down regen. That's the biggest point, actually. I'll say that. I've used it to shut down regen models.
totally, definitely a thing that is true. Next up, we have some guy. What's he called? Rodney Ryder. I don't know. He's 11 points, man. This guy
My
seems bad.
boy! He's
He
my
seems bad.
boy!
He's so expensive. We already have like 6 10-point henchmen that we're hiring in a 50 Soulstone crew, which is problematic. But look, Dead Rider.
Yeah,
let
no,
me
he
tell
goes
you.
down to almost never higher.
He-
I
he-
love my boy.
He's
but-
real strong, but like he's
Is he?
a lot of stone. Yes, he's very strong. He's a lot of stones in a crew that I just don't think you can afford it. But we'd be remiss to not talk about him. He is ruthless. He gets a fate token at the start of the turn for each dependent one for whatever number the round is. He can spend them for crows in his final dual total. He's ruthless. He's unimpeded. He has a 3/4/5, which is 2 inches, with a built-in with a build-inable trigger to push 2 and then push the target into base contact with this model so he can abduct people for free. His bonus action gives out injured. It lets you summon hordes of zombies, and he has Ride With Me, which can really help with your slow models, especially when you hire like Sloth to eat him up the field, or any of your 4-cost students that you shouldn't be hiring and should only be summoning, so it's fine. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't think you're ever gonna afford him. If you could afford him, or you just like found 11 soulstones for free, I would say take him every time.
No. I would have better uses for 11 soulstones. So I'll go through why you're wrong, and it mostly comes down to partially Revel and Death no longer does the damage. I mean, that was huge. Anyways, to just do guaranteed ping damage is still really important in this game.
Yeah.
You're never really going to ride with me Sloth because you don't want to leave him in the backline, especially if you're hiring Sloth along with him, because you're one of the ones you're fasting, and you're not going to just dirtle in the backline with him, and you don't want to move Sloth too far forward too quickly. And you have, in Schtook in particular, you have so many undead models to pick from to fast in like the mid game that you don't need to be up the board fasting the certain bigger ones. Honestly, Sybelle is just one of the reasons why I hire Sybelle so much. Is obviously she got buffed, Ryder got nerfed, and that buff is huge. For 1 less Soulstone, you have a very similar / better damage track in Sybelle, synergy with willpower attacks, and you're just losing the bonus action that got decently nerfed, that realistically most of the time is just an extra attack, which if you're willing to just fast the person is normally better. Ride With Me is not going off. Scythe is really useful when it comes up in certain strats, but
Yeah.
I mean, Beckoning Call is pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a keyword that's already really expensive and already has a bunch of really great 10-cost picks. There quite frankly is basically just never room for the Dead Rider. But I don't know, Pope, are we wrong? Do you think you should?
I mean, pre-nerf, pick whichever nerf you want to, interpret that as. I think he was worth including. Now I'm not certain. I'd be inclined to agree with Haku on it.
Sybelle
Douglas?
every time.
He's a good-looking, chonky lad, but there's a lot of other good-looking, chonky lads and lasses in this list, and he might not be the best-looking, chonky lad.
Well, he might be the best looking, but
Well, if you have the puppet variant, then obviously he's the best looking, but
that's true.
you get what
Buy now
you
with
get
our
what I'm going
affiliate
with.
link.
Buy the puppet box now. Don't
Play
waste
Levy
30
too.
Don't waste
You, I mean,
$30 on
actually, you
Rider.
should though. That's the
$40
best crew
on
ever.
All 4.
Limited edition Levy, or the old Avatar Levy plus the puppet box. That's like to me, that's like the soul's fire of a Malifaux crew. It's like
Yeah,
the
you just gotta
dopest
find
one.
a couple waifs and you're good.
Yeah. There's a guy in our Discord making an all puppet Levy. Shout out to Paul, he's the man. He's making an all puppet Levy 2 crew. It's really funny.
There was an old puppet Levy model, right? Back like promo model from a million years ago that's theoretically obtainable.
I've never heard or seen of it.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I thought
Sam's like
somebody was
the
telling me.
historian of Malifaux on the team. He'd be able to tell you. He'd be like, actually, it was blah, 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 blah. Basically.
Wild. I don't know if that's what Sam sounds like in any capacity, but speaking of other spirits that we keep enslaved, I guess, which is not really in any way how I would characterize Sam, we have the Enslaved Spirit. What a segue, folks. Enslaved Spirit is cracked. This guy's nuts. He's 3 points, defense 5, willpower 3. Willpower 3, not great. Movement 4, also not great, but he is incorporeal, which is really good. He has chained, which is a neat little debuff that within 3 models within 3 can't reduce the value of their own focus condition, which means you can't use the focus if you're within 3 of them. They have demise with a demise ability, which lets them drop a ski marker anywhere with it completely within 3, which is okay. They have an attack called Lethal Curse, which does injured, which is pretty good. They have Arcane Touch, which is bad. It's just a 1, 2, 3 base contact with. You could, if you want, 2, 3, 4, and then kill this model. But the thing that is important is on the front of their card, they don't have the words insignificant. On the back of their card, they have an ability called Chain Gang, which, without flipping, choose a model, an other friendly model within 3, move it 3 inches, then move this model up to 3 inches, but you have to end within 3 inches of the target. So it's kind of like earlier when we were talking about the undergraduates who have lead the way. It's sort of like better lead the way in every possible way because it's just better, and these models cost half as many points. And you could take, I don't know, 6 of them for the Pub Dem Cup, except you can't because they're max 3. But this is a versatile Reser model. The cost for this model is not its points. It is the fact that you can only buy it in a $100 box set. But it comes with these and the Gwisin.
Look,
so.
but you get like 9 of them, so
Yeah,
you can split
you
that
do.
cost between 3 friendly Reser players.
Yeah, you just gotta find 2 other Reser players in your local and split that box because it's and fuck it, throw in some guild people, right? Because you get all those guild mages that definitely aren't about to get.
So it's a really cheap box when you think about it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But I don't know, Haku, am I crazy? Enslaved Spirits are just fucking cracked completely.
Yeah. The question is, do I still put them in sometimes higher, just like the top, or is it like the bottoms of every time? Like, am I actually always hiring these models? I have to go recreate some lists to find out. If you have like 3 extra, I don't think you're always hiring these models. So I'm gonna put the top of sometimes. Most of the time you're hiring these models because you have like wagons in, or sorry, what do we call it? Like kick the can, whatever. Even covert they're really good with, but things like guard, they're not really that good at. I mean, it's nice for them not to lower focus, but largely, if you're already like in wedge deployment or something like that, and you don't need models to help you unpack, you would rather just condense your crew a little bit into, as we talked about, you have a lot of really good high-cost models that are great at soloing almost whole crews by themselves, so you would rather condense that a bit more. And yeah, when you need to, drop one of the higher cost models, throw in 2 of these guys, and you're Gucci. They take care of all of your problems.
Wild. Pope, thoughts?
Say spirits are, useful unpack tools. I think they struggle a little bit when you start trying to use them for strategies, though. But,
Yeah,
that's why I mostly mention wagons, because they just do the first few kickings. You get 2 really good kicks off of them, and gets it over the halfway point, and then they can die.
They're also insane when Hidden Martyrs is active. Like, they're so fucking good. I mean,
also another public demo model if you have.
Okay, I mean, but nothing will ever be 8 steam arachnids in a trench coat smoking a cigar.
I don't know. These guys do have a lot of flappy clothing that you could hide a lot of steam arachnids in.
They're doing a better.
Are you telling me that the steam arachnids are actually the enslaved spirits?
Maybe. I mean, they're incorporeal. You who knows how many enslaved spirits you could fit in a steam arachnid, let alone how many more steam arachnids you could fit in that enslaved spirit's cloak, right? In its pockets. We're talking about an infinite steam arachnid paradox here.
Challenging our hobbyers to just stick a bunch of steam arachnids inside.
Do it. Everyone who either plays steam arachnids or enslaved spirits, do it.
Look, if you're gonna 3D print some enslaved spirits inside some smaller arachnids that you then are going to attach to your enslaved spirits pockets, then please take a picture of that and send it in.
Look, I'll
We
say
need
this
that.
literally now. If you do this and are willing to send it to me, I'll give you like an Alt Hoffman box or something. I have a lot of boxes you can pick through.
Wild. Yeah, it's wild. I've seen his collection. It's sort
There
of
will be a prize if you can send us some memed
enslaved
version of
spirits.
Steam.
Some combination of increasingly smaller enslaved spirits than steam arachnids, then more enslaved spirits, then more steam arachnids.
Yeah,
Get
but I
your
mean,
top scientists on it.
in all seriousness, this model is really awesome. Like, they're great.
Yeah, they are very good, as are our next pick for versatile undead models, the Gwisin. Gwisin are Ballin, Urami, but also versatile Resurrectionist models. These guys cost 6. So they're 5 and 5. They have 5 movement. They're incorporeal. They have Vengeance, which is like sort of okay, but quite good when you take into account the fact that they have the ability to take the hit.
No. Means nothing.
Oh, does it not function with take the hit? Because it's after
they
resolving?
have correctly FAQ'd that you do not
Oh,
get
did
vengeance
they?
when you take the hit. Yeah, they did that a while after Gwisin came out, which is why you don't really see Gwisin that much anymore at all. It's still really important for Resers to have their take the hit model, but the fact that you don't get vengeance means that you don't want to use them as the take the hit model unless you have to. The big thing you're hiring this for is if schemes and strats come back up, they have Trail of Gore as a bonus action and they're incorporeal. And the worst comes to worst is they can always threaten and pick the keyword that you're in, which is pretty good when you want to murder things with Transmortis, especially with like upgrade Transmortis. So they'll always have like a friendly spot in Transmortis, but until like scheme marker drops come back up, nah, that FAQ probably made them so that they're not the threat that they used to be.
Well, we did it. Yeah, fair enough. Take the hit's really important. Less so now that 33's been nerfed into the ground. But I think that there will always be a place for take the hit as long as there are really strong abilities that can hit things that you don't want and they can get hit instead. And they're versatile.
Yeah, literally the counter matchup. It's not even a joke. When you rely on so many triggers and there's stuns everywhere, you actually just need to hire these guys to not have your like masters get stunned.
Yeah. I'm so sad now. Because unfortunately, actually let me go over to first Pope. Pope, you got anything? Anything crazy?
I don't think I have anything too crazy to say about these guys. We covered Trail of Gore is good. That was my only highlight.
Doug, Gwisin?
I think they're great. I hire them in Seamus 1 lists a lot, actually. And I do think Haku's right. Like, when having to remove schemes becomes very relevant again, or more relevant, I think they see a lot more play. But I still think they're really solid models. I like these guys. They're good.
Fantastic. Finally, we have the last model of this discussion, the nurse. I really like nurses, and as you have maybe listened to any of our videos before, they have tools for the job. I can't speak enough about how good this ability is. It's really strong. I'm kind of sad having to include them because they're going to break this block that we have going where we have everything in even rows. But, I guess we gotta. Haku, do you want to talk about nurses? They're they're tools for the job. You're sort of like the living physical embodiment of tools for the job. So
that's fair. I vastly prioritize tool of the job in a lot of crews. This is actually kind of funny because I don't think it's that important, Schtook, mostly because you're drawing so many cards.
No. It's I mean, it's definitely not, but like it has tools for the job. We're doing a tier list. You can't not include them.
Yeah, I'd probably put them at the bottom of sometimes matchups, just to be kind of like frank. If I have, it's one of those things again where like depending on how you break up your crew, if I have like the extra 6 soul stones, I've already hired Sloth. I'm going to be hiring nurses. They give out the focus, and the extra healing goes a pretty long way, especially depending on the matchup you're going. That being said, when you're drawing so many cards, you don't really need to prioritize tools of the job as much, and when there isn't like a key important attack, you don't have to prioritize it as much. So the best thing you're really getting it for is like the Valley guaranteed severe 5 on double puncture that you're stoning for. And even then sorry, not double puncture, puncture focus that you're stoning for in Schtook 1. And is 5 really necessarily worth hiring a whole nother nurse when you can just be fine with hitting a moderate of 4? Probably not. Like, just the way their damage tracks lines up and the certain attacks and how they're statted, having the high card isn't as important when you don't have that one big important thing that you have to go off. So, weirdly enough, its best use, I think, for in this crew is getting off some clutch stuns. So if you know you're playing against a master where a stun is very important, tools for the job that high card, lecture notes them, blammo. And then you just repeat ad nauseum so that person never gets to take it on stun turned.
Blammo.
Delicious. Pope?
Healing's good with this keyword. You have a lot of tanky stuff. Nurses heal. Focus is good with this keyword. Nurses focus. I'm gonna stick with the placement on them though, but they do decent things. And bedside manner is always a really cute tool to have in the toolbox.
Yeah, I agree. Bedside manner can be real spicy when opponents forget about it.
Also works so well with undergrads.
Yeah. These models are good. Like, nurses are always good. If I ever, for some reason, am 6 points in excess, I guess, well, there's 7, right? Because there's 6 base, right?
Yeah.
So it's 7.
Yep.
That's hard. Because this crew's strapped for points a lot on higher range stuff. Oof.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the only reason. Yeah, like, they're good models. These models are absolutely good. And if somebody was like, I took a nurse, I'd be like, yep, that makes sense. They're good. You know, there's like, I wouldn't really question it, but in the scheme of things, there are a lot of points to hire into a team that needs to be spending points on multiple chunky lads and lasses. So that's their downside here, I guess.
I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for throwing a bottle of painkillers to your giant undead robots and how effective that would be IRL. No, I mean, nurses are good for sure. They're very strong. I don't understand why bottle of painkillers isn't living only. That doesn't make any sense to me. But you know, it's fine. We have a bunch of stuff, right? And I think, you know, the Von Schtook keyword crew as a whole is very, very versatile. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. There's a lot of good card draw. There's a lot of really, really excellent abilities in numerous ways. They're really killy, which is one of the best ways to win games of Malifaux. That's sort of Haku's approach, I think. But I guess we probably sort of covered it a little bit before, but do we want to just quickly break down Von Schtook 1 playstyle versus 2 and how to beat him? Because that's sort of a thing that I think that we do on the tier lists.
And I think an example list, right? Like, what does a stock, at least starting Von Schtook list look like? You know?
Yeah. So, Haku, do you want to start with?
Sure. I'll give you 2 and 1 with the same exact list.
We did it.
You hire, and it looks really obvious when you look at our always hire. You hire Valley, you hire Lovelace, you hire Viscera, you hire Sloth, and then you debate over the last 15 stones. So in Schtook 1, you hire a second Viscera. In Schtook or Madam Sybelle. In Schtook 2, you can also hire just a second Viscera. Sometimes I like Manos. Sometimes I like some Enslaved Spirits and maybe a nurse. But probably just 2 Enslaved Spirits and then slam upgrades on people.
Yeah.
Or 1 Enslaved Spirit and slam upgrades on people.
Yeah, and
I like the 2 Enslaved Spirits and slam upgrades, or even just cash fat stacks of Stillstones, baby.
Yeah, like, remember, your Resers, you have some of the best upgrades in the game. So slapping some Whisper on your Shtooks, when you see that, like, nice 13 come up on either Schtook, you're like, oh, I can just go murder someone. You see the red Joker come up on Schtook 1, you're like, oh, I am going blasting.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope.
And then he started blasting.
And then he started blasting. You're putting in the Danny DeVito on this one, right?
Of course, you're always
good.
Right. Yeah, I think the game plan is relatively simple in 1. You know, you slap upgrades, you eat things down the field, you do murders. Maybe you'll get to summon some things. You draw cards. Much more straightforward, and definitely probably how you want to learn this. Haku, game plan for 2, set up some combo-y stuff, put in some markers.
Yeah, it's like the same thing, except for you just have to pay way more attention to where markers are and what they do. So it's just like a wee bit more complicated, whereas Schtook 1, you just go blast, and Schtook 2, you probably get a lot more versatility. And you get more versatility in the list. You don't have to go with the murder them all list. You can hire the Manoses and the necropunks and the Enslaves and spread out, and then really just try to control the board. That's not that good in GG3. It might be good in a later GG, but currently, you just want to go blasting, and then it's just more important where you have your scheme markers to make sure that people count as extra characteristics. Because, you know, just hit somebody for 3 and then walk them away is really good.
Yeah, and I think
I also think it's worth calling out that Schtook 2 is like, I call him like a big brain master, especially if you slap the whisper on that bad boy. He's got a very, very high ceiling in terms of the amount of lines of play that are accessible to that model at any given time. And yeah, you're right. You can't like just blast an entire crew out of the way of something or kill it. But what he can do is selectively control really, really critical components of the board state at really, really key times within a game. And there's not as many masters that can do that. It's fairly unique, but it does require a lot of reps and a super, super deep understanding of not just what you're capable of, but also what your opponent is capable of in order to like play against it, you know?
Yeah, my current Von Schtook 2 game plan is I usually just review all of my aura abilities. Shade of Delios is really big, keeping people in those. Planning out like my unpack with study of anatomy is really, really strong, because like I think most of the time what I'm doing is trying to get Valedictorian, trying to get the Valedictorian study of anatomy with all the characteristics, and then, you know, just react as you need to, which is a really, really strong play style in Malifaux and Ward's repetition and playing it over again.
Yeah, I mean, you can, yeah, I would say if you want to get into Schtook 2, you can play him essentially the same as Schtook 1, where instead of fast focusing your guys, you're just placing them 3 inches from their location, which is very similar when you actually think about it, because most of the time that fast IP is just a walk, which is a lot like a 3-inch place.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you can just move on from there. And then they'll also have shielded that way, and a few other things that, you know, allows you to do fun things.
The shielded is real nice because it lets your Valley girl stick around.
And then you can, then you'll get comfortable playing with them, and then you'll figure out like, oh, I don't just want to like face slam that same go in turn 1 every time. Maybe I'll do this cute thing where I go to the sides, and I'll go in turn 1 and make a zombie.
Yeah. So, Pope, do you want to talk us through like what your plan is when your opponent has flipped into Von Schtook across from you, and how you will systematically dismantle them and then you know, murder their whole crew in front of them and then make them cry?
Yeah,
Make
so,
your
like, step
opponents
one
cry, Pope.
is get rid of all your 246s. Just throw them in the bin. Like, 246 models do not work in this matchup. Like, your best case scenario is they hire undergrads for some reason, and your min 2 is not min 1. But that realistically, no one's going to do that for you. No one's that nice. So look for your min 3 beaters, your armor ignoring guys, or people who can just score points without fighting, because trying to punch through any of these guys at min 2 is not going to work unless you're really good at flipping the red. Which is another point. Everybody in this crew has hard to wound, so if you make enough attacks into these guys, you're going to flip the red at some point in time. Like, you will get through your whole deck here. But they draw a lot of cards, so you really have to be a bit choosy with what duels you want to win. Like, their card quality is just going to be better than yours. You kind of have to accept that for most crews, since they have the potential to draw a card on every interaction you make with them. So just make sure whatever you're doing to them, you have a reason for doing it, right? Because the worst thing you want to do is like try and make an attack that you don't really care if it hits or not. You miss, and then, you know, you just decide not to cheat. He just either matches your suit on the regular flip, you know, and just draws a card for free, or he just cycles another card that would, you know, beat your 1 or whatever terrible card you flipped, and then, you know, trade his 4 for a 13 from the top of his deck. You know, that's bad. So limit your interaction points to ones that matter, and make sure you're not taking like models that really rely on focus tracks or straight flips.
And yeah, min 3 beaters all the way.
Yeah, and kill the necropunks if it's relevant. You know, those things are one of the easier things to put down, and that's saying something.
Yeah. Doug, you got any final remarks on Schtook as a whole?
I just think he's good. I think he's the definition of a well-rounded, like, balanced, good keyword. I think it's important to understand which summon models to not spend points on as hires, and what your initial lists need to be to kind of get the trajectory that you want out of this guy, to enable you to get your summons, right? Like, you want to hire the correct suite of beaters because they'll kill enough stuff to get you more stuff, basically. And you don't want to take, like, kind of the wrong units on the front end, because it'll make snowballing into ultimately what you want to do as a master and as a keyword harder.
Yeah, and I think for everybody who plays Malifaux, you know, in general, like, it is worth noting that out of all of the crews in the game, I think that this is one of the more obscure crews, model-wise. Like, they have a lot of models, and a lot of them look very similar to each other. So taking some time to really just sort of look at what these models are and get a feel for which ones are which, is something that is probably important if you think there's any chance of you ever seeing Von Schtook, whether it's at a local tournament or whether you're traveling to something big like Nova or ArmorCon or Adepticon or anything, right? So that's one of the things, even as playing Von Schtook, that I have struggled with personally, is what model is which. They're so similar, and they're just lack sort of a uniformity that I think a lot of Malifaux models do. So, you know, definitely take your time and invest in that. But anybody have any final thoughts they want before we wrap this up? I think we said a lot. Yeah, great. So yeah, keep an eye here on the planet for sure. Definitely take a look at our Discord, where you can join our conversation, see what we're up to, check out all the Malifaux stuff that we're doing, and look at my super awesome Rick and Morty Von Schtook crew that I definitely didn't steal. No, I did steal the idea from Chris, one of our local players. So it's sorry, Chris, but thanks. Also, great idea. And you know, check out our Weird Store affiliate link. It helps us out, and we would appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye. Say goodbye to the internet, guys.
Goodbye, internet.
Goodbye, internet.
So.
Bye,
Oh.
Greg.
Peter Bear.